Hello everybody, Phil Snyder here, Gun Clash Utah. Hey, today I've got an update on Mr. Gamboa's jail stay. So today is June 22nd, 2025, and it looks like that Mr. Gamboa, through his attorney Greg Skordas, was released from the Salt Lake County Metro Jail yesterday evening. Or it was Friday evening, I can't remember which night it was, but his attorney, Greg Skordas, made an agreement with the judge to release him, and some of the conditions were, number one, that he cannot possess any of his weapons, his firearms, and that he is to report to pretrial services. It was the district attorney's motion to the court, my understanding, to do that through Mr. Gamboa's attorney. And the DA had commented that they could not make an informed decision by Monday, which was his original date that he was going to get out. So anyway, I just cannot believe this. This just seems like a travesty of justice to me, to see that they are still haven't let him off of the hook, Mr. Gamboa, yet. This poor Gamboa guy. A week ago, I didn't give two shits about this man. I didn't know who he was, but I also don't think that it was a wise decision that he go to a protest with an open carry rifle. I understand that is his right to do it. I'm not saying he can't, but I just don't think it's a good idea. If I was going to carry a gun at a protest, it'd likely be either an open carry or a concealed carry pistol, depending on what kind of protest it was. If it was an armed protest, just to exercise Second Amendment, then I would open carry it, obviously. My question is, why does the Salt Lake City PD seem to have such a hard-on for Mr. Gamboa and charging him? They've had a week to come up with some video evidence or other evidence that actually shows Mr. Gamboa pointing a rifle at somebody. And obviously they haven't found it yet, or they would have done so within 6 days, and with an extended jail stay, they haven't done that. It's time to move on. You know, my experience with 30 years of law enforcement, whenever I had cases that I wanted to pursue with a suspect, the DAs will oftentimes, it's a standard practice, at least it was back in the day, they will rubber stamp pretty much anything that a police department, a case that they have. They will usually, they're supposed to have a good working relationship with each other. And that has been always my experience, is that if I had a particular interest in a case and pursuing justice, the district attorney's office would support that. So that is why I just said, what the hell does the Salt Lake City PD's hard-on for this guy is? I mean, it seems to me it's just out in plain view. They should be charging this peacekeeper that shot and killed this innocent bystander, Mr. Liu. And again, I apologize to the family. I offer my best condolences to the family in this matter, of Mr. Liu's family. And I think that you should be really upset, and I'm sure you are. So let's look at what the peacekeeper's actions are, okay? I just saw a media story yesterday. They went out and measured the distance between where the peacekeeper fired the 3 shots from and the distance to where Mr. Liu was struck and killed by these bullets. 162 feet. Do you realize how far that is? When I worked at the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office in the Unified Police Department, we did not qualify with a handgun for distances longer than 75 feet. 75 feet was the maximum that we fired a handgun from. Military, standard enlisted military, as I said earlier in my video, does not have very good training with a handgun. A police officer, they have a lot more training that's detailed than somebody in the military does that goes through boot camp, if they receive any training at all on a handgun. My understanding, some military boot camp haven't received any pistol training on a handgun. So I'm pretty confident to say this peacekeeper was not trained to shoot at distances of 162 feet. He fired into a crowd of people. Other bystanders were present. And he fired at a moving target. Mr. Gamboa was reportedly ran away into the crowd when they yelled at him to drop his weapon. Well, Mr. Gamboa doesn't have to drop his weapon. He was legally possessing the rifle, and he had no obligation to surrender to this peacekeeper. I mean, this whole thing is ridiculous. But when you do those things that I described that the peacekeeper did, you are acting reckless. You are training beyond your capabilities. And in my opinion, that is reckless. When you recklessly take the life of another human being, that is manslaughter. That is manslaughter. The very definition is the reckless taking of somebody's life. And you couple that with the fact that the peacekeeper had no legal justification to fire at anybody. What is their evidence? We know they lied initially and said that Gamboa raised the rifle at a crowd, which he didn't do. Video footage came in later on that dispelled that, made it a lie. Chief Red of the Salt Lake City Police Department said witnesses said that he raised the rifle at a crowd. Well, okay, who was the witnesses? Because if Mr. Peacekeeper here was the witness, that's filing a false report because that's not what happened. So there is no justification to use deadly force. The peacekeeper would only be allowed to use deadly force and shoot into that crowd if he had an imminent fear that somebody else was in imminent danger of being seriously injured or killed, or if he was preventing the commission of a forcible felony. None of those have been met. What does he have? Somebody has a legally open carry rifle at a protest and they run away because he wouldn't drop his rifle for him? Bullshit. The other option would be we would have to reasonably believe that Gamboa made a threat accompanied by a show of force, which I don't think he did. He didn't point the gun at anybody. Or another definition of aggravated assault would be doing some sort of unlawful act with that rifle that caused risk of serious bodily injury to somebody, which he didn't. So it's not justified under the law, and he's exceeding his capabilities. An interesting case I found, I actually remembered when I was in patrol at the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office. I think I was working for Unified Police Department at the time this happened, because this was 2012. There was a West Valley City officer that was charged by Sim Gill, the same district attorney we have now, because an officer fired 3 rounds at a vehicle, a suspect that was driving a vehicle towards him. He fired at this person. He fired at this suspect. And District Attorney Sim Gill said that his life was not in danger, according to witnesses. He had no legal justification to fire those rounds, and shooting those rounds could have ricocheted off of the street and hit innocent bystanders that were around. That officer was charged for reckless endangerment, which is a Class A misdemeanor. How the hell are the actions by the peacekeeper not reckless at a minimum, what Sim Gill went after a police officer for in 2012? Somebody really needs to ask Sim Gill these questions. I'm going to post the link to that story, Sim Gill charging that officer, so you can read that article in the comments. You know, and if this changes and the police end up doing the right thing, I would be really happy to hear that. This whole thing just makes me wonder who is behind all of this. If any of you media are listening, I know that Utah KSL, I believe, and Fox 13, and maybe some other ones. It has been garnering a lot of media attention on this suspect. If you're media, please ask the following questions. Who the hell at the Salt Lake City Police Department is pushing these charges? Gamboa, when he was released from jail a day or two ago, I can't remember what it is, they did not drop those charges. They just said, we can't decide at this time. So why doesn't somebody ask the district attorney's office, why not just give Mr. Gamboa a declination letter? A declination letter means we reviewed the charges and we're not going to file any due to a lack of evidence or insufficient probable cause. This Mr. Gamboa, hell, he gets shot for no reason. He spends a week in jail. They let him out and take his rifle and other weapons they say he can't possess. He can't sleep at night knowing that he's still on the hook for murder. Who the hell is behind this? Ask what kind of ammunition was used by the peacekeeper. If it was full metal jacket rounds, it could have easily passed through somebody and hit somebody else. If it was full metal jacket and not hollow points, there's recklessness there. Ask for this peacekeeper's military training records. See if his training records indicate that he can shoot at 160 feet away at a moving target into a crowd. Find out if this peacekeeper has had any pistol training in the military. Some military, as I said earlier, don't receive any training on a handgun. Even if he has, I'm familiar with the training. It's not that great of training. There's not a high standard, and they probably do it at 20 feet, not 160 feet. Does this peacekeeper have any ties to the Salt Lake City PD? Are they friends? Because the Salt Lake City PD sure seems to be protecting this guy's identity. I can't find him anywhere on the internet. Chief Red, you told the media in a press statement you want to be transparent with the public. Well, this is a good time to show what kind of chief you are. You've only been on the job a few months. Disclose this guy's name and tell us what you've learned. I haven't seen any press statements from you that evidence came forward that said that he did not level the rifle at the crowd. If that hasn't been done, that should be getting out to the public. Gill, you filed charges against the West Valley officer for creating a risk of harm to people and charged this officer with a misdemeanor. Why is the peacekeeper off of the hook here? How is it different? It's basically the same thing. It's even the same amount of shots. To all my students out there, just to close, this is why I always harp on you to get training. I tell you two things, don't I? And anybody that's been to my class knows this. Number one, I say, get training. You're going to perform at your highest level of training that you've received. And don't do things that are outside of your capabilities. Because you are liable for every bullet that comes out of your gun. If it hits an unintended person, even though you believe that you're saving somebody's life in your mind, you are still liable for criminal and civil liability. Out of my mind, this peacekeeper should be charged. And if he's not charged, somebody's covering for him. And so why doesn't the media ask these questions? Feel free to contact me if you would like. If you're an attorney for Mr. Gamboa, if you're an attorney for Mr. Liu that got shot and killed for no reason, contact me. I'll help you with your legal case. And lastly, I think it's very interesting. You know, I never thought about this officer for a very long time. When I was a training officer for the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office, part of my assignment was to train recruits from the academy. They would be newly hired by the Sheriff's Office. I was their training and mentor for about 11 weeks while they got through the field training program. And there was this particular officer. We were on a contact in a Smith's parking lot. And there were some young teens. I don't know, they're probably young adults. I don't remember the age. It was a long time ago. But these young adults or young adolescents were in the car. My trainee got out and contacted them. He came back and I asked him what he had. And he said, well, I've got an open container of alcohol, so I'm going to write a ticket. And so I tried to explain to him, because they are on a private property parking lot, you cannot write an open container for that. And he says, no, that's not the case. I go, no, it is. Let's review the statute. So anyway, after reviewing this statute, he said, well, they're not going to know the difference anyway. They'll just plead guilty to it. They don't know that it has to be on a private property. Can you believe that shit? I documented that in his training record, and it didn't sit well with me at all. I think the guy should have been fired. But they didn't listen to me. Common at the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office at the time, they don't really listen to FTOs a whole lot. And they allowed him to come off of probation and off of training. And guess where he went? He went to Salt Lake City Police Department. Now, I don't know if this guy that has ethics issues and moral issues, my opinion, what he did is a Brady issue. He should be on some sort of a Brady file, but no, he's with the Salt Lake City Police Department. And like I said earlier, I'd like the media to ask who behind the police department is behind pushing these charges instead of just dropping it with Mr. Gamboa and moving on to the peacekeeper. Find out who the member is. You know what? If the member at the police department had any input as to decision to keep this thing going, I'm going to release the guy's name and I'm going to make it public. And you know who you are. Yeah, I was his training officer a long time ago, and he works for the Salt Lake Police Department now, and he knows who he is. So please, somebody ask these questions. And I'm not going to let it go. I'm going to keep following the story until there's some accountability here, because accountability seems to be lacking in police these days. Accountability and transparency. Thank you for watching.